Today we're going to be learning about the multiplication and division property of equality. It's very similar to the addition and subtraction property. We're going to use this property in order to isolate the variable and solve for an unknown. In the example that we have here, we look at what we're trying to find, which is m, and we ask ourselves, what's happening between the 4 and the m? As you can see, multiplication is occurring. So what we need to do is the opposite operation. The opposite of multiplication is division. So we will divide both sides by 4. When we do that, 4 divided by 4 is 1. 1m can also just be written as m. We don't have to write the 1 in front of it. 12 divided by 4 is 3. Just like we did with addition and subtraction, we need to check our answer and see if it really is a solution. So we put it back in. 4 times 3 equals 12. Is that a true statement? Yes. So it is a solution. All right, in this next example, we're trying to solve for x. X is being divided by 3. So the opposite operation would be to multiply. We're going to multiply both sides by 3 because whatever we do to one side, we do exactly the same thing to the other side. In this case, the 3's cancel, leaving just the x. 6 times 3 is 18. As we did before, we need to check it. So we put the 18 back in for x. If we have 18 divided by 3, does it equal 6? Yes. So 18 is a solution to our equation. All right, this example is interesting because we're dealing with fractions. And we have to remember that if we are asked to divide by a fraction, we can't do that. Instead, we have to use the reciprocal, which means we need to flip that fraction and multiply. So, when I'm trying to solve for y in this problem, it is being multiplied by 2/5. The opposite of multiplication is division, but I can't divide by 2/5. So instead, I need to multiply by 5/2. And whatever I do to one side, I do the same thing to the other side. Now you'll notice on the left-hand side, the 5 cancels with the 5, and the 2 cancels with the 2, leaving just the y. On the right-hand side, in order to multiply fractions, we multiply the top times the top and the bottom times the bottom. 1 times 5 is 5, and 3 times 2 is 6. Now it's time to go back and check. If we put 5/6 in for y, we have 2/5 times 5/6 equal to 1/3. The 5's cancel, and we're left with 2/6 equal to 1/3. Well, 2/6 reduces to 1/3, so it is a solution to our equation. All right, I want to show you one more example, just because this one's a special case. If I look at the 4 and the t, they are currently being multiplied. So I would divide by 4, which makes sense because I can divide by a whole number. But the problem is, when I get over to the right-hand side, I would have to take 1/3 and divide by 4, which I can't do. So in a case like this, instead of dividing by 4, we would like to multiply by the reciprocal, which is 1/4. Multiplying by the reciprocal will still accomplish what we need to accomplish. 1/4 times 4 is 1, so it leaves just the t. The fraction side, 1 times 1 gives me 1, and 3 times 4 is 12. Now it's time to check, so we'll plug it back in. 4 times 1/12 equals 1/3. Well, it does cancel, so I have 1/3 equal to 1/3, which is a true statement. So 1/12 is a solution to my equation. Now it's your turn. I'd like you to try this one. Remember to pause the video, Take a second, try it by yourself, and then turn the video back on to see if you got the right answer. Alright, you should have divided both sides by 3. When you did that, you would get m equals 5. If you plug it back in, 3 times 5 equals 15, which tells you it's true. 5 is a solution to the equation. Alright, here's another one. Take a second, pause the video, and try it by yourself. You should have multiplied by the reciprocal, 11/5. When you multiply on the right-hand side, you will need to put 7 over 1 in order to multiply a fraction times a fraction. So you can see on the left-hand side, 11 cancels with 11 and 5 with 5, leaving just the x. And on the right-hand side, we end up with 77 over 5. Now remember, the last step is to plug it back in and check. If we take 5 over 11 and we multiply it by 77 over 5, do we get 7? Well, 11 cancels with 77, leaving 7, and 5 with 5, leaving 1. So I end up with 7 equal to 7, which is true. So I have a solution to my equation. X is 77 over 5. Alright, I have one last problem that I want to show you. In this case, we're going to be solving for p, and it is multiplied by 0.04. In order to isolate p, I need to divide both sides by 0.04. I wanted to remind you how to divide by a decimal, since we're not using a calculator at this point. If I am dividing 28 by 0.04, the first thing that I have to do is to remember to move the decimal point. In this case, I will move it 2 places, which means behind the 28, I would move that decimal place 2 places and add 2 zeros in. Now I can do my division. 4 goes into 2800 700 times. So p is equal to 700. Now it's time to check. If I multiply 700 by 0.04, do I get 28? You may want to rewrite this vertically instead of horizontally to do your multiplication. If I do 0.04 times 700, I will get 2800 as my answer. But then what I need to remember is, because I have 2 decimal places here, I need to take the current decimal point and move it 2 places back to the left. So my answer is 28, which checks out and makes 700 a solution to my equation.